Welcome back to Newstalk. Joining us now, pollster Dr. John Johnson, author of Everydata, the misinformation hidden in the little data you consume every day. Corey Stewart here, Susan Swecker here. Great to have you there. All right, you probably can't turn around without being asked 10 times, given our interest in this race and, frankly, our desire to have it over. What's the latest? What's the latest? Who's going to win? No pressure, Dr. Johnson. Who's going to win?
Yeah, well, my phone was ringing just as I was sitting out there with new polls already. But basically, look, the polls are at the point where we're so oversaturated with daily polls, different organizations of completely different quality. At the very highest level, the national polls today, as we stand, showing a lead for Clinton between 3 and 5 points, depending on the source. That's overall. But really what's going to matter is going to be the states. And that's where we're going to have to look, because that's going to what's determine this race.
Are you surprised her lead has been so durable?
I am. I mean, if you go back over the long slog of this entire campaign, there really has not been more than a day or two where Trump has been in the lead in the averages, and that was around the convention. And so it has been. On the other hand, though, I think because it got so big and then came down and sort of deflated, people have this impression that, wow, the lead is not really what it once was. And so sort of this whole impression of coming down from a high point versus going up. This lead's about where George W. Bush was before his election with Kerry. We've seen these kind of leads before, and a 3-point lead is actually a pretty big lead in a national race.
Is it possible that late tomorrow night or Wednesday morning we'll say that Hillary Clinton survived the James Comey letter, but some of the down ballot races were impacted in a way that helped Republicans?
I think it's definitely possible. I mean, when you look at sort of state by state, which is really where this all going to come down to, one of the things you see is sort of what were quote unquote target seats for the Democrats in the Senate races, like New Hampshire, have really tightened. Pennsylvania is very, very tight. Places where before you would have thought for sure there was going to be very likely Democrats would take, at least the polls have really tightened there. So we're going to see. It's uncommon to have the kind of ballot splitting that we're seeing in the polls. So if the polls are to be believed, this year people are going to really split their ballots. Democrat, Republican, or Republican, Democrat. But that's kind of rare historically, so we'll have to see what happens.
Let's talk about the Comstock-Bennett race. How do you see that one, Susan Swecker?
Well, you know, I mean, Donald Trump was in, Loudon last night, and I mean, Barbara Comstock has been trying to run for Donald Trump. She can run, but she can't hide. And we feel very confident in Bennett. She's run a great race. Barbara Comstock and Donald Trump are very two peas in a pod on the issues.
She made national headlines breaking with him, though.
She did, when she found it politically expedient for her to do so. I mean, this might be something Corey and I agree on. I don't know, but and Barbara Comstock is she's a political partisan, and that was in her benefit to do that, and so she tried. But that's Donald Trump, actually, that's not a district, particularly there, that is very favorable to him.
Corey, who wins that race? Who has the late momentum?
Well, I think Comstock made a big mistake when she essentially betrayed the Republican nominee for president. And as a result of that, you got to remember, not only does she have a big part of Fairfax, but she's got Western Prince William County, very conservative, all of Loudoun, which Western Loudoun is very conservative. You've got Clark County, you've got Winchester, very conservative, pro-Trump areas. And, people feel betrayed by her for turning her back on Donald Trump. And so she's going to lose a big portion of her base.
Wasn't she in a no-win situation, though, if she rejects Trump early or she rejects Trump late? There's a base, whatever you want to call it, there's a big chunk of voters of the electorate that she needs to win, who she risks offending if she says early of the race, middle, late, at whatever point, she says, you know what, I'm repudiating my nominee. So there's that. But there are moderates who are, some of the moderates, and certainly the Democrats, are looking for her to create daylight, and it's like either way, it's a knife that cuts.
I think. Look, I cover all of Prince William County. I've been elected there 4 times. It's 450,000 people. It's a 60-40 Obama district, and I'm a very conservative Republican. What people are looking for is somebody who's going to say what they believe and stick by things done, including on illegal immigration. And in Northern Virginia, I've been able to do that. If people don't like the professional politician who just says what they think that people want them to hear. And I think that she would have been much better off just embracing the nominee, sticking with it, and people would have respected her for that, even if they disagreed with the nominee.
Barbara Comstock preferred Marco Rubio, I believe, in the primary. Wasn't this a very difficult spot for her to be in once things started to go the way they did in the general?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a difficult spot even before it started, just because the demographics you're talking about. That is sort of a, sort of came in on that Republican wave a few years ago. So the demographics in that particular 10th district are unique. It's interesting, sort of tilting more towards the typical Northern Virginia, more Democrats than Republicans. So there's sort of at that wave. So that need to be independent or appeal to those voters is kind of the challenge there. The last polling I saw, which was a couple of weeks ago, you don't have great public polling on congressional races, but the last polling had Bennett ahead by 4 points, but that's been very volatile. So I think it is going to be a close race, but we'll see what happens.
Of the states, did someone else?
Could I just say also, we feel very proud of our nominee, Lou Ann Bennett, who is a successful businesswoman and has brought thousands of jobs to the area, and we're running in lockstep with her. That's the difference we do have. I mean, Hillary Clinton, Tim Kaine, our entire Democratic ticket is running a coordinated effort, and I think that will be extremely helpful.
Is there a VP advantage in a race like this? Can a Kaine, I mean, you always hear people talk about what the VP brings. Is that, when you have two larger-than-life candidates, is there, at the end of the day, do you think is there much benefit, or in a close race, could a Kaine help in a place like Virginia, where he's been very successful?
Well, I don't think that Kaine does much of anything, to be honest with you. I mean, he's not one of our beloved governors. I mean, I can name even a couple of Democrats that people really revere, but he's not one. And to that extent, I don't think Kaine is much of a factor at all come November 8th. Tomorrow.
Is there a state that you're looking where that it seems ripe for a surprise, or that might become the story tomorrow night? And I'm not asking you to predict a Florida 2000 ballot counting sort of a thing. Those could be anywhere, and we hope they're not anywhere. But in terms of Michigan or anywhere, what's going to?
So I'll give you
where are you giving a little?
I'll give you where I'm going to look sort of closely tomorrow, and I think it's going to sort of tell us how the election is going. In the Midwest, obviously Trump is ahead in Ohio, in Iowa, in all the polls, close in Ohio. People often think, because of the state borders, that there isn't a lot of correlation in the voting patterns in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio. All those states, a lot of those voters have similarities. So you're going to watch sort of that Midwest corridor to see if Trump can sort of break what is considered the blue wall. On the other side, for Clinton, if you see Florida go early, North Carolina go early for Clinton, that's going to be a very long night for Trump. So I think those are the places where I'm looking the most tomorrow.
The Michigan focus seems to reflect a belief that if you're Trump, you try to run the table and pick off one. And Michigan looked like, for whatever reason or reasons, and given and size, that you have to bring enough electoral votes to matter. Was that the strategy?
Yeah, it appears to be. I mean, one of the things that we have to remember, we see all these public polls, but the campaigns are the ones that have incredible polling on both sides, and so they really know what they're looking for. What you can't get into in guesses is the chess game. Is it Trump looking at a map and saying, well, Michigan is still a long shot, but that's the best shot I've got? Or is there something more they see? And then you sort of start to see campaigns go tit for tat. Now, Clinton's in Michigan. You sort of see them following around. And that's just part of the end game for how campaigns work when we get to this date.
Susan Swecker, Corey Stewart, John Johnson, great conversation. I would love to have the three of you back. Thanks very much for coming in and spending time with us on this election eve. We appreciate your time. Hope you'll all come back.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. A check of the Election Day forecast and headlines are next. And then we'll talk statehood.